let's get into this issue of the right to work from home, because, as I mentioned, we've only just finished talking about the right to disconnect. And now another potential reform is being considered in the workplace, and there's a lot happening in this space, I've got to say. Now, the Fair Work Commission is looking at whether awards should include the right to work from home, which would affect more than 2 million Australians. Now, what do you think about this? You let me know. Should this be a basic right, or should we leave it up to bosses and workers to just negotiate that individually? Now, I want to bring Melissa Wilson into this. She's a Senior Economist at the Committee for Economic Development of Australia. We call them CEDA. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Just on that question then, what do you think? Is this a good idea?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting, isn't it? It looks like work from home is here to stay. You know, we know from the data that 37% of Australians are regularly working from home now, and it's gone up so quickly since the pandemic. And part of the reason for that is that it has many real benefits for workers. And one area we've looked at particularly is that it's been great for diversity and for employers finding a more diverse range of workers, for workers who are in situations where they prefer to work from home, so carers, women with small children, they really benefit from work from home. So we really do need to focus on making it work and preserving some of those gains. And I think employers understand the intention of these regulations. But I think, like, you know, the right to disconnect, which you mentioned, regulation is quite a blunt instrument. And we know with working arrangements that it's not a case of one size fits all. And so there is a risk that we're trying to legislate or regulate for every possible circumstance, and that just makes everything much more complicated for both workers and for employers. And what we really need is to enable employers to address these issues in a way that makes sense for them and for their employees. And in fact, we did some research last year that really highlighted that the risk of the regulatory burden and the complication that brings, and that it takes time away from innovation and other more important things that businesses could be doing, which is a key driver of productivity growth. So that's something that the government really needs to consider more holistically when it's looking at these sorts of changes.
Do you think there's been a shift, or do you feel there's been a shift where some businesses are really pressuring workers to come back into the office, and in some cases workers are saying, no, I actually don't want to? A worker could argue, if they're getting the job done and being as productive as they are in the office, that they should have the right to work from home if they can.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that difference in what workers are asking for and what firms or employers are wanting. So workers are saying, when you look at the survey data, that they feel more productive at home. A lot of the benefits, the productivity benefits of work from home, do accrue to the individual worker. They like the flexibility. They benefit from not having to make that daily commute, and they can use that time for other things. Whereas the productivity benefits of bringing teams together in an office typically accrue at the firm level, and they're less tangible for workers, and they take longer to accrue. So that's, you know, the benefits from collaboration, from informal mentoring and things like that. And so there's this discrepancy between the benefits that workers see and the benefits that firms see, and it's a complicated picture, and that's why we really need to look at a range of factors, and we need research and evidence around what works when it comes to working from home and how to get the best approach.
Do you think employers prefer having their staff in the office?
The survey data suggests that employers do really want to get people back in the office. I think when you look at the data internationally, there's a recognition from employers that their employees like being able to work from home, and so they know it's good for retention and it's good for employee engagement. But they say that they're really concerned about the productivity benefits or the productivity loss, the loss of innovation. Those sorts of things are what are concerning them. And I guess this has happened quite quickly. It's a fairly recent phenomenon. So the jury's still out on those sort of longer term effects as well.
But the point you made and the research that you talked about earlier that you've released today is that it does provide an opportunity for more diverse employees.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where we've seen a really clear win for work from home. That's one of the big benefits that we'd really like to preserve going forward. So our analysis shows that, you know, parents of young children, people with a disability or a health condition, and carers have joined the workforce thanks to, in part, the pandemic-induced shift to work from home, and also thanks to the strong labour market over the last few years as well. So we've seen the biggest gains for women with young children. They've increased their participation by 8.5 percentage points, and then people with disability or health condition by 7.5 percentage points. And at the same time, the total labour market has been, broadly steady, or a little bit of an increase in participation. So these are really significant gains. And what we've also seen is that these groups are now working from home at similar rates to other workers. So work from home has really levelled the playing field across the economy, and that's really good for these workers, giving them opportunities. It's also really good for employers who benefit from that diversity that it brings to the table at their firms.
Melissa Wilson, finally, do you think some businesses view working from home as a concession that they have to make to workers? Don't necessarily like it, but see it as a concession. Is that how they should be viewing it?
I think there is an element of that viewpoint at the moment, particularly in a tight labour market. The pendulum, the balance of power has probably shifted in favour of workers, and I think there's a recognition that over time that's going to shift as the labour market softens and the unemployment rate goes up. But what we're really doing with this piece of research is to encourage firms and employers to take a broader view and to sort of think more holistically about the productivity benefits that different ways of working can bring. I think if we think about it in that sense, in terms of what the greater good is, then we stand to reap the rewards.
I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Melissa Wilson there. She's a Senior Economist at CEDA, which is the Committee for Economic Development of Australia.